I'm going to give it a shot.
You'll do fine.
Again, it's going to be very challenging, brother.
Hang on tight. Here we go. Hang on tight.
I'm going to try.
You'll do fine.
The idea of MMT runs contrary to the idea of neoliberalism because it proposes more options for the governments to do stuff and get active. Yeah, but you're doing it off of like gay money. You're doing it off fake money. I don't believe in this shit anymore, okay? There should be
All right.
What's gay money, by the way? I never heard that expression before.
I have no idea. I think he's saying game money, not gay money. Game money, like as in monopoly money, right?
Okay.
He doesn't understand the way any of the system works. Just what he said right there tells you everything you need to know. There's only two ways of getting money into the system, period. Either you and I are going to a bank and we are borrowing money that we somehow or another have to be in debt for and pay back, okay? Or the government spends money, doesn't print money. It's so important. And money is not some social construct that people get wrapped around the axles. It is literally a creature of law. Law is what gives money its power. That's why we can tax in it, and that's why we can spend in it. And that's why debts are settled in it, okay? And you'll realize that it's not about the U.S. either. You know, Russia, MMT describes the Russian monetary system completely. MMT describes the Chinese system completely. It describes the European Union completely. It describes Brazil. It describes Africa, all the nations in Africa. It describes every currency out there. It is not the definition of printing money or some other crazy thing. It literally is a lens to understand the plumbing of how these systems work, to understand the limits of spending, and to understand the cause and effect of spending, okay? And so it's the bank's money, not the people's or government's. All right, so Brent is another person that's saying a lot of things without really knowing anything, okay?
Here to learn,
So
guys.
If the government,
here to learn.
If the government decided to dismantle the Federal Reserve and take all those actions into the Treasury, it'd be the same system. It wouldn't change anything. Maybe you're not paying interest on reserves, but all it takes is a simple Google search to realize that the Fed transfers all of its earnings back to the Treasury. Okay. It keeps whatever it keeps for operating costs, but all the rest of the money transfers back. Why would it do that? Why would it transfer all of that back to the Treasury? Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot of people out there that are sucked into like libertarian rat holes with a bunch of stuff they think they know, but just ain't so.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend a lot of time, bashing them on the head because they just throw out tropes in the midst of things. I'm also not here to defend banks, the Federal Reserve, or the people in our government. I'm not here to defend any of them. I'm here to tell you how the system works. And I want you to think about it. I almost brought a hammer with me, Peter. I almost brought a hammer in with me so I could show you that a hammer in the hands of a carpenter can build a house, but in the hands of Ted Bundy is a weapon for murder. Okay. You're not going to get rid of hammers. You're just going to make sure that the right application, the right people are using the hammer. But what if you can't change the people that are using the hammer? You certainly can't change the system if you can't change the people using the hammer. You see what I'm saying? You got to have power. And the reason why the people that are in power use the system the way that they use it and indebt us and do all these speculations and all this money pumping into the rich is because it's class war and the rich own. Exactly. I mean, the rich own the system. The rich own the system. So guess who it serves?
It serves
the rich.
And only them.
I mean, you don't have to be a genius. You don't even have to be an edgelord. You don't have to be a goth person with cool black makeup on and black fingernails to get this. The rich, it is pure class war. And as a socialist, a bona fide, dyed-in-the-wool socialist that understands the system, though, unfortunately, part of me wishes I didn't understand it, because then I could walk around with everybody else and be considered normal. But because I do understand it, I'm like this freaking whitehead on a, on a black ass. I'm like just sticking out like a sore thumb.
I think,
and the reality is
that you have a lot of knowledge that you need to share, because people still need to understand this. And the good news is that a lot of people are going to see this, and maybe more of them will learn and get on our side of thinking versus somebody like Vaush's side of thinking.
Be no investment, no speculation. Money should be temporary. There should be no quantitative easing. There should be no fractional reserve banking. Like it's all bullshit. Okay,
stop. There is no such thing as fractional reserve banking whatsoever. Fractional reserve banking ended in 1934 when we went off the real gold standard. Okay, so Vaush, please go do a little history, do a little reading, catch up. Got about 100 years of history between your knowledge and where we're at today. It's not factual. But all the things he's saying, here's the thing. Money should be temporary. Money is temporary. Money is extremely temporary. Okay? When the government spends money into the economy, it spends new money into the economy every time, not sometimes. And it doesn't do it by funny money. It does it by law. Only when a law is passed. Now, mind you, I don't believe we can vote our way out of this. I don't believe we have a democracy. I don't believe that we can control what the political class does with these controls. Okay? I want to be crystal clear. But it is a creature of law. Okay? So when Congress goes through whatever machinations it goes through to write a bill, okay? Now, I wrote a thing explaining this in great detail. I'm not going to go through it all, but here's the way it generally works. Government writes a bill. Let's say that bill is to create new silicon chips in the United States. The United States government writes a bill. Congress passes a bill. President signs it into law. In that bill, it directs the creation of a new factory. Maybe it's nationally owned. Maybe it's the people's owned. Maybe it is guild owned by the Silicon Chip Makers Guild or whatever. That doesn't exist right now, but you get my point. It writes a law, and then it says in the law, we will create a factory. We will create the jobs to fill the factory up. We will create jobs for the scientists to work on advancing chip technology, whatever this is, right? I'm just using, it could be anything. We could make it healthcare, but I'm not going to because that's too easy. What then they do is after they write this law and they say all the things that they want done in the law, it says a budget. They come up with a budgetary amount that this bill is going to be good for, okay? And then when they have that in their hand, it goes through appropriations committees, and those funds are then conjured up into the Treasury's account with keystrokes at the Fed by law, not because we went in there and asked, hey, what's the interest rate, bank? You know, what do we don't want to go into debt for this, man. No, we wrote that into law because it is our money. It's our bank. It's a creature of law. The money existed before it was even keystroked because the law created that money. And that money then became part of the ledger when the keystrokes were entered. It's just simple accounting. I mean, super simple accounting. They say it's $10 trillion. I don't know, come up with whatever number you want. Those numbers are entered.
I'm gonna have to reel you in. We got to keep it tight. I want to keep you on this because it'll take us 3 hours to do this. If we got to stick to what he's talking about here.
But what he's talking about though is funny money. He's talking about fake money. He's talking about monopoly money. And I'm saying it's not. It's a creature of law. All money that's put into the economy from the federal government is written into law and spent by the government into the economy. That's not funny money. That's a legal entity creating a bill that would create healthcare, could create bombs, could create war machines, could create anything.
Which is why, which the mistake that he's making is this belief in the austerity libertarian mindset of politics of money, which is it's the taxpayers' money and then it goes to the government and then they decide. No, that's not how it works. Government first, then the taxpayers, and then the government decides where we do not have a say. So that's the missing piece.
So that's the missing piece. But one last thing, there's a difference between government spent money and bank credit. Okay. When he's talking about is loaning out money for crazy stuff, financialization, all this stuff, that all is political economy, has nothing to do with MMT whatsoever. Though MMT would describe that probably and say, why the hell are we doing that? Okay. Anyway, keep going.
As much money as possible should be stripped out of speculation and everything associated with it. No more gambling on the economy, okay? It would make us poorer. Poorer by what metric, man? We live in the wealthiest country in the world with productivity unrivaled in all of human history, and a lot of people struggle to buy groceries. Like the way we are.
I'm out. Real quickly. Money as a creature of the government, whether you like it or not, libertarian friends. This is how it is today, whether you like that or not, whether you want privatized money because you want to strip the government of any power, which should be, it's not, but should be we the people, right? That's what the government should be, we the people. So all this speculation stuff is an ideological capitalist approach to economics. This is what they do. It's not what you would do if you were in control of the government, but you're not. And I'm not, and we are not, okay? So when you understand that everything he is complaining about has absolutely nothing to do with MMT. In fact, even the biggest, multimillionaire guy in MMT, Warren Mosler, would say that let's get rid of the fire sector. What the hell do we need with finance, insurance, et cetera? Real estate, we can get rid of all the speculators. He would say, get rid of the spec. Fine. I agree with you. Let's stop selling bonds. Yes. The government, which serves capital, wants us in debt because we are controllable. We won't revolt. We will be trapped because we're afraid to do anything. So yes, when a capitalist runs your government and runs your monetary system, you get capitalist outcomes. Imagine that. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
Keep going.
Our measuring wealth is clearly not reflective of people's needs and wants. It's all bullshit. It's all floating up here. I don't care how gay the money is. The important thing is the stuff getting done. That's what counts. No, that's not what counts, actually. I'm not interested in stuff getting done through an infinite chain of public-private partnerships where the government prints $1 trillion to give to Enron or construction companies. Everything always floats to the top.
You hear this repeatedly over and over, and I won't make you stop, because if people can understand that what he's saying right now is repeatedly bashing, rightfully so. Like, I am right there with him, except he moronically believes that it's MMT saying to do this stuff, or this is MMT, or this is MMT is not saying any of that. Okay. No. MMT is literally saying that, why would we have public-private partnerships? Because a capitalist wants public-private partnerships. The government, if it chose right here, right now, if we were socialists and we decided we could literally nationalize everything and get rid of the private sector altogether, to my great joy and happiness. But that, again, has nothing to do with MMT. Nothing whatsoever to do with MMT. And I think people need to really, really understand that there's two things. I have people on my own team that can't quite get it through their heads that MMT is the base case. The political overlay is socialism, capitalism, eco-socialism, whatever you call it, ism. All those isms ride over that system. And that system produces whatever the ism is at the top that's pushing it. And right now, the people that control our government and control every aspect of our lives are capitalists that are financially destroying all of us. But that is not MMT. MMT can show us how to undo that. Now, mind you, if we had the ability to vote our way out of this, which we do not have the ability to vote our way out. So these are contradictory terms.
Yeah, but you got to be in the streets. Most people don't want to do that because that's requires risk.
Meanwhile, people at the bottom subsist on nothing, you know? No. The speculation as a concept has to go. Just ban speculative markets? God, I wish. I disagree. How would that even work? How would what even work? What's the difference between speculation and investments? Whether or not you're gambling on a return, I suppose? We can get rid of investment too if you want. Not really an MMT guy, but MMTs view taxation as a way to destroy money. No. I'm aware of the theory here. The problem is, at the end of the day, that MMT is still biting the bullet on, it's literally called modern monetary theory. I hate the modern economy. Like,
Time out. Michael Hudson takes MMT back to Mesopotamia. Modern being a relative term, not the last 15 minutes. Okay? Not the last 15 minutes. Goes back to credit tables on tablets, stone tablets, credit. It goes back to tally sticks, wampum. It goes back to putting little notches on a piece of stick. It goes back to all kinds of shells, you name it. Money is just a form of transfer. It's the ability to settle debt, okay? But without having a kind of authority to kind of maintain that this is the settlement agreement, so somebody can't change the rules in terms of clearing your debt. These debts are payable in US dollars, which the government, which should be serving us, is the creator of. Even when it comes to banks lending money out, those banks have charters from the governments, period. It's that simple. If the government decided to pull their charters, they would cease to function as they do today. And that's the deal. That's the thing. We get it all backwards. We think the banks are over the government. It's the government that's over the banks. The problem is it doesn't look like it, does it? It looks like the banks rule the world. And they do by default because the governments are captured in capitalist bullshit. Okay? So these are defining political economy things that he's talking about repeatedly over and over and over again. It is not in any way, shape, or form, not MMT though. Okay. And what he's describing as, bullshit, it doesn't this and that and the other, he just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. For real. And I mean, no disrespect to him at all. I mean, I agree with almost all the things that he doesn't want in this world. He's just misattributing it to MMT. And that's where it goes wrong. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Continues the cycle of we print more money and we loan it out at incredibly low costs so that it's more profitable to take that money that you've borrowed and reinvest it than it is to actually make anything. We need to make the economy and robustness within the economy operate at a ground level again, a human level again, with money that actually transfers between people. It moves between people, That's what we need. Were we doomed as soon as we came off the gold standard? No, it has.
He's almost there.
He's almost there, man. Here we go with this whole thing, right? When he sits there and says money should be, usable for things, important things at the ground level, I don't disagree with him. But when you spend money into Halliburton, this is the definition of trickle-down economics, right? You spend money at Halliburton, the oligarchs that own Halliburton and run Halliburton, then in turn hire people, they give them wages and shit, and they step on it like a crack dealer, and they just drink, the money just trickles down little by little by little bit. Okay. If we were to go ahead, for example, and this would blow everyone's mind because they wouldn't know what to do with themselves, if they had a job guarantee that prevented the capitalist class from using a UBI to price gouge and to jack shit up and to do all the things that we've noticed through Isabella Weber's very, very good work to show about sellers inflation. if instead we provided a job guarantee where people serve their local communities and stuff like that, the very thing he is saying could come to pass. Instead of seeing it be spent up at the rich top and leave it trickle down to us where we don't get any and we're desperate and so forth, if we spend it down at the bottom, money always rises. And then all of a sudden, we could do something about ensuring that there wasn't that extreme capture at the top, that accumulation that occurs within the capitalist class. But that is another story altogether. You've got to have people that are in office, and I'll say it until the cows come home. We cannot vote our way there. Okay, so all these pie in the sky dreams of what should be and shouldn't be, you've got to have power. You've got to have the ability and willingness to fight a class war. You've got to be willing to do that, to make any of these changes that he wants to have done. That doesn't change MMT. MMT is still rock solid, just sitting there twiddling its thumbs, waiting for him to figure it out. Okay. But the reality is that what he's saying, I don't disagree with. He's just misattributing it once again. He's a full cup runneth over, no new information penetrating. Okay. Because he thinks he knows what he's talking about. He's probably got 50,000 people watch, 100,000 people watch, and he's misled 100,000 people because they all think that's what MMT is, that they're printing money. I told you how governments work. They spend that money into existence. They don't print it. It always is this way. Every time, folks. Not sometimes, not if you like it or if you dislike it, all the time. And when they tax it out of existence. It's like a circuit, okay? The government does this every time. The government doesn't need its coupons and taxes. It doesn't need any of that stuff. We need the government's money.
Why do you
unless we want to go to a bank and borrow? What's that?
Why do you think new dollar bills get printed all the time? It's because those are new bills being put into circulation, removing old bills that make it back to the Fed, and that's it. It's real. Honestly, it's not as complicated as people think it is. They make it very complicated because not everybody's very small percentage of our country is truly affluent in economics and truly understands it. And
I want you to take this.
But that's on purpose.
Take it a step further, though. The actual physical dollars that we see are so minuscule in circulation. They have them for ATM and teller transactions.
I think this is a good question by Dubs. So what is the government debt? So for example, Steve, when you say, and listen, I like Thomas Massie. He's the only honest operator because he truly believes in that form of politics. You get these other nincompoops that don't know jack shit about it. But when you see the guys out there saying we're 37 trillion in government debt, why is that a lie?
All right. So double entry accounting. If you're doing double entry accounting, you have an asset and you have a liability. Always, right? Always. Accounting is like science. It is the one thing. It's scientific. That's why they have these freaking forensic accountants. I mean, it is true science. You can follow the ledger. Okay. Assets and liabilities, always. When the government creates money and spends it into existence, that is the government's liability. Because what it's saying is that I will accept $1 to pay $1 in tax. Okay? We, in turn, pay the tax. Why? Because the tax is what maintains the monopoly power of the nation's unit of account. Happens, by the way, in China. Happens that way in Russia with the ruble. Happens that way in Australia. Happens that way in European Union. It happens everywhere the same exact way. Okay. And so what they do is they're tallying up every untaxed dollar in existence. And that represents every government spent untaxed dollar represents the national debt to the penny. Okay. To the penny. And what happens is that people, when they get this money, in order to buy a treasury bond, that's right, banks cannot lend reserves out to bank. There's somebody that knows their shit right there. Anyway, with that in mind, okay, people buy bonds with US dollars, existing US dollars, not some funny money, They buy them with US dollars. And back in the day, this was used like during World War II. They sold treasury bonds, they sold war bonds, okay, to try to get people to delay purchasing power so that the government could keep all of its resources ago to pump up the military machine.
Exactly.
To make the country be able to build the tanks and planes and bombs and all the other shit we needed during World War II.
But there's
and
the
Vietnam.
one. But there's the one thing about war: you better win. Because if you don't win, then you see what happens to other countries around the world. But I digress. We'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, we can get deeper into, like, you know, Weimar Republic, because there's always somebody out there who wants to hear that. But we want to deal with Vaush, right? So in this particular case, though, I think it's really super important to understand that everything that he's talking about right now, every last thing he's talking about, is political economy. Nothing to do, not 1 ounce of having anything to do with MMT. Go ahead.
Amen.
It has nothing to do with the gold standard or fiat currency or anything. This problem was even back during the Great Depression happened under the gold standard. When was the last time the economy was good? It's never been good. When has there been socialism? In the 1950s in America, rampant speculation and like top level fake money circulation hadn't propagated to the point where it had completely stripped us of our real economy, our real economic activity. What about the East India Trading Company? Was that speculation? What the fuck are you talking about? Of course people speculated on the East India Trading Company. People have been speculating on business ventures for thousands of years. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Was the company No, the company wasn't speculation. The company was a company. Well, I was kidding. Yeah, me too. I love that every time Vaush mentions that infinite credit economy is bad, it devolves into this. It's genuinely amusing. Remember the last time we had this conversation and there were people in chat who were astonished by the fact that a huge number of Europeans don't even have credit cards? Over here in America, you have to get a credit card.
Stop. In Europe, people don't have credit cards, whatever, okay? Guess what that is? That's a political decision. The European countries all have robust safety nets, not just safety nets, robust citizens benefits. Okay. So people don't need to take out a credit card to pay for their doctor visit. They don't need to take out a credit card for travel back and forth on the subway. They don't need to take a credit card out for whatever. And the way the countries are done, they literally still have some of the old vestiges of old socialist thinking that all those countries had at one point in time. Okay. The problem is, and this is what's happening to both the UK and most of Europe, the United States neoliberal strain has vassalized all these countries. We have turned them into vassals of the United States. We are exporting neoliberalism at a rate that's alarming to even them. And they're watching their national health service be gutted and privatized, all in the name of efficiency, all in the name of making some rich fuck some money. Okay. So what he's talking about is the very essence of what I'm saying. He doesn't understand it, though. If a government spends on the people, new money on the people, having fuck all to do with banks, okay? If they spend the money on the people, meaning now all of a sudden I have universal basic services, what would that do to my life? How much debt would I need to take on if I didn't have to worry about my health care, if I didn't have to worry about my dental care, if I didn't have to worry about housing or food, if I didn't have to worry about those things and they were part of a service? I didn't have to worry about paying for college education that it was provided.
Very good point. And this is one thing about the Europeans that I don't think it's talked about enough. We talk about how fat our country is, especially compared to Europe. In Europe, especially Western and Northern Europe, maybe not so much Western, but really the northern part of Europe in particular, where they have these universal services, especially education, healthcare, and a living wage. Why is that different than what we have here in the United States? One of the biggest problems we have in the United States, not just that our food is substantially less healthy than it is over there, but there's also a lot of stress eating here in the United States. People do that constantly when they have to worry about, am I going to have enough money to do this? Or I have to eat cheap shit because I can't afford anything else. You live over in Europe, it's not a problem the way that it is here. That's not to say that Europe doesn't have problems, but compared to us, they're living the fucking dream over there.
Yes. Yes. Nailed it, Pete. That's spot on. I mean, this is the point. That is a political decision. And let me tell you what really, really screwed Europe up almost as bad as the US vassalizing them. By them all giving up their currency and going on the euro, they lost the ability to print money, right? To spend as much as they need to satisfy the needs of their people. They basically turned themselves into Texas and Delaware and Maryland and Florida instead of being countries that have their own, the Greek, yeah. I mean, they gave up their currency to be on the euro because people didn't understand what monetary sovereignty was. They didn't understand MMT. They thought it'd be a great idea. Now all of them are controlled by a central authority, not in their country, the European Central Bank, the ECB, the Troika, okay? And so now you're watching austerity measures throughout Europe. Now, one thing that's been very interesting, Europe, because the United States has pulled back some of its quote-unquote military support, has decided that it is going to ramp up military purchases and do away with its deficit rules. Again, these are all just rules, man. They could be changed in a moment's notice, and they did. They just, let's go ahead and make it wide open to buy military stuff. Now, who do you think is going to win out now that Europe is suddenly going to have to build out its military? Do you think it might be Boeing and all these other companies, these massive companies that are suddenly going to be, hey, step right up. We've got planes, we got bombs, we got tanks. It's dealer's choice, right? This is
it's all the same. And again, one of my biggest criticisms about Vaush is that he is so blindly in love with Ukraine and so blindly hateful of Russia without actually looking at the logistical component to it, especially with the MIC and how it's all about money and power. Everything is about money and power. The reason why we don't use MMT is because the people who have the power don't want the people to have it. It's that simple. So, as you said, can't vote your way out of this. You have to work collectively as a working class, dare I say, revolutionary change is the only way we're getting out of this.
That's right. It is. Let me just say this, though. There is no such thing as having or using MMT. MMT is there whether they think they're using it or not. MMT describes the bad moves as well as the good moves. It is truly a lens to understand the economy. Deficit spending is my political economy. I'm saying to you, we should spend on the people. I'm telling you that we should stop funding rich people with bonds. We could stop selling bonds tomorrow if we wanted to. Okay, we could literally stop doing that. But why don't we? Because people love having a very, very safe place to save their money and earn a nominal interest.
Hence
that
why
right there.
Hence why people put their money under a bed. And that's again, there's a lot to that which hasn't changed over the years. It's different now. That's why people think Bitcoin's a solution. We'll keep going.
Because it's the only way to build credit, so banks will loan you out enough money to get a mortgage or a car payment. But like in Europe, a lot of them just don't even have credit cards. In America, it's like, nah, you have to get the credit card and you have to buy everything off the credit card. And the credit card company is hoping that you don't pay it off at the end of the month because they make their money off the interest off of your debt. But if you do pay it off every month, they get mad at you. The MMT essays. You can absolutely do that with MMT. It's not a monolith. MMTers want more money exchange to base the economy. Red Cascadian, you're not following, okay? There is no way around the fact that I hate speculation and borrowing money to invest money. I don't like investment.
Okay, stop. He thinks that the United States government is borrowing money. See, this is why Vaush doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And I don't mean that. Yeah, I guess I do mean a little harsh, but I mean, he's putting it out there. The dude is bloviating, right? I mean, he's popping off, man. Like he's holding court. And he's, I like agree with so much of what he says, but he's so fucking full of himself that he misses the most important points. Everything that he's talking about is the political economy, the choices we make that we don't get a say in because we don't have a fucking democracy. Gillens and Page, 2014 Princeton study, black and white, fucking empirical shit, man. Read your Howard Zinn. We don't live in a democracy. So the idea that you're voting your way out of this, Bernie's going to fight the oligarchy, blah, blah, blah. Grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. It isn't changing. He isn't challenging the system in any way, shape, or form. The system itself, the underlying MMT base, isn't our issue. It isn't our problem. What is our problem is capture. It is absolutely understanding capitalism and the war, the literal class war that we're in. So all of what he is saying right now, he wants to get rid of speculation, wants to get rid of, hey, man, I'm there, buddy. How are we going to do it? You're going to vote your way there? No, you and I are going to have to get out in the streets. We're going to have to organize. It's not just get in the streets. Let me be clear. We'll run face first into a howitzer and get our face blown off by the largest military, largest police force, you name it, in the world. Okay. We are up against incredible, horrible odds. So this right here is important, that we've got to strategize. We have got to collaborate. We have got to organize. I've said we've got to build mass network from coast to coast, mutual aid, hostels for people to stay in. People, you never will see a strike for any company where the union has not properly put away money and funds and protections for the workers, where they will stay on strike until they get a good deal, because you will have strike breakers, scabs immediately, because people are going to do what they have to do to survive. So you've got to have these things in place to really, really, really fight back. And nobody's taking it seriously because everybody wants the easier, softer way of hoping that Bernie Sanders will go ahead and kill the oligarchy and end capitalism with a few good people like AOC. Whatever, man. Whatever, dude. I can't even hear him anymore, man. He's so full of it, right? So with that in mind, I just want to say point blank, nothing Vaush said whatsoever has anything to do whatsoever with MMT.